Just a note from Mattel, you guys may want to put a rush on that Snake Armor Man-at-Arms. He-Man is a little outnumbered. Oh my. Greetings fanboys and fangirls, Jared here with another video review from Fanboys Forever. Today we're going to be having a look at one that I've been anticipating for a while. This is the Masters of the Universe Origins Deluxe Snake Face figure. Of course, this is from the Rise of the Snake Men, which has kind of been their year-long celebration in 2023 of the Snake Men, and it's been really fun because of just how extensive they've gotten with it, and it appears that they're just going to keep going and they're going to cover all the Snake Men, so I'm really pleased with this. Of course, we've done many Masters reviews here on the channel, so of course be sure to go in and check those other ones out, and of course subscribe to the channel if you haven't yet, and like the video because that really does help us out. Alright guys, with all that out of the way, let's begin. First off, just looking at the packaging, it's really nice. Of course, it does go along with what we've seen this year with the cool snake scales and everything. Even on the blister right here, there's some texturing for those snake scales, so that's really nice. Up there we have some beautiful artwork. I really think they did a great job with this, and I think that the Snake Men artwork has been particularly strong, it feels, this year. And then moving on to the card and the actual blister itself, and it looks really nice. It says, snakes pull out from the body, and Snakeface is the most gruesome of the Snake Men warriors. As a matter of fact, he's so scary, you just turn to stone when you see him. So of course, Snakeface here is their kind of male Medusa that they've had since the original line. He's not a new character or anything, he's been around a long time. And in a surprise to absolutely no one, there's incredible artwork featured on the back of this card. Particularly interesting is we have some really nice stone versions of Prince Adam and Extendar right there, so I think that's really cool. Snakeface's evil enchanted gaze turns his enemies into stone statues. They wrote a song about that in the 70s. And it just kind of explains how you can switch his head out and you can pull the snakes down from his body right there. And in case this helps you out, it's the barcode and UPC. Alright, let's go ahead and open him up. Of course, it's worth pointing out, however briefly, that he does come with this cool mini comic, and it's a pretty neat little showcase for Snakeface, and you get some appearances from other characters like Fangor right here, so I think that that's really cool. And here he is, right out of the packaging, we have Snakeface. And so first impressions are really solid on this guy. Not only does the figure look great, but there's some really solid construction. All the joints feel fantastic. The figure has a great weight and heft to it. Lots of positive takeaways just from first impressions and handling the guy for a minute. I think that this figure does a great job of simulating that old kind of Medusa trope and kind of looking like a Ray Harryhausen sort of character. Something you may have seen in like an old movie or something about Greek mythology. So I definitely feel that that is a win right away. I think it captures that, and it captures the spirit of that original figure really well. I think the other thing it does is gives kind of a unique colorway to one of the Snake Men. None of the other Snake Men really are based in gray like this. And I always thought it was good that they found a way to kind of have one of the Snake Men represent this and also bring a little bit more green. And I think turning the figure around, we can see that it's not nearly as detailed on the back, of course. We just have his black, like sleeveless armor back there. However, I will say that it's on the back where you can see all the cool spray details for the paint that's on the snakes and things. And you can see some of that separation on the arms. You see how it does that with the snakes, how there's that spray where it transitions from gray to green. So I do think that that's neat. Getting a better look at the face right here, I really do think that this is just a fantastic sculpt because you have all this great bumpy detail just all the way around. And it makes it really pleasant and tactile to handle the figure, so I really like that. The same can be said for the neck right here, and the arms have all that beautiful kind of almost warts. All of that looks really nice. I'm particularly fond of the spray effect, which of course is accurate to the original figure, and I think they did a great job on that, having that kind of overspray over the shoulder and onto the arms. What I think they could have done to have enhanced this figure past the original, or whatever you want to say, is I think that they definitely could have painted these snakes down here individually, which just remain gray. And you know, I get it, they're going for more of a vintage aesthetic, but I think that that would have improved the figure. And later we're going to see a comparison that shows you just how that would have looked had they done it. Moving on, the chest of course is completely wholly original. You're not going to see this elsewhere with the Snake Men. And it does have an action feature we'll get into here in a minute. Down here he does have these shorts, which are just kind of scaly shorts. They're very similar in design to King Hiss's shorts, but the belt is different, so just be aware of that. The legs are just our normal kind of muscly legs that we see in Masters, and that's one of the only parts that isn't completely new for this guy. Practically everything is tooled up, and down here we just have some little like web feet boots right there. Of course, we do need to talk about his alternate head. Now, instead of doing the action feature from the original figure where you'd press the thing on the back and his tongue and his eyes would both extend out to like turn someone to stone, instead you just get an alternate head. I am fine with this. I'm always good with them just throwing an alternate head in there. I don't need it to be the action feature. It doesn't really mean much of anything to me. I just need to be able to display it the other way, and I really do like how this turned out. I'm not sure what else could have been done to have enhanced this necessarily, because I think that it hits what it needs to. Maybe, you know, a little bit of paint on the eyes of the snakes or something, but that's so small that that would have been really hard to have hit accurately at a mass production like factory. So I think that it does look really nice, and I'm going to leave him in this mode for a minute since you've got to see him the other way. Of course, articulation wise, you're not going to see anything that you don't usually see in Origins, so there's really nothing to talk about there. Showing you the other action feature, he does have the ability for snakes to come down out of his chest. And so we just tab those out, and there they are, just little snakes, and that's it. He does kind of leave these crevices right here in his chest that are shaped like snakes. Of course, this is very much in line with the original figure. Now, what I will say is I feel like that this action feature could have been enhanced because it's not especially impressive just looking at it, because the snakes are so flat down there. It's kind of even hard to tell if you see them from any other angle except down like this. So I think that that's a missed opportunity. He does still look fine like this, but I know that the engineering people at Mattel could have come up with a way for it to have been more epic when these snakes come out, and certainly have made them look a little more vicious. There had to be a way. Of course, far be it for me to offer criticism and not offer a solution. I think that the solution would have been probably, I just would have had these open and there to have been two little connector points, and he might have came with maybe two dynamically posed, outreached, coiled snakes. And I think those would have been great to have just hooked in there and made him more dynamic. But as it is, it's fine. Just something that I would have liked to have seen them added. In terms of accessories, he does have some pretty cool stuff, like this really neat snake shield. It kind of just looks like a bunch of snakes have formed together around like a pen or something, and he's just using it to protect himself. So I don't know what the ethics of this is with the snake men, although I imagine ethics is not something they're familiar with. He does come with, surprise, surprise, a snake person staff. Of course, a lot of the snake people come with these, and you can see that once you put it in his hand here, it looks good. I really do like the dark green color. I'm surprised that we don't see this repeated more often for these snake staffs. But of course, even, you know, ones like the one King Hiss included is just like this light limey green. So together, and I think this is a fun opportunity to show those staffs together. Here's some of the other snake staffs right here. I just think it's cool to have a variety of colors. I would definitely, if I were Mattel, give some kind of story thing about those staffs, and about if they bring them together, they can summon Serpos or something like that. That's what I would do. Maybe somebody already did that and I just didn't read it. Of course, you know me, one thing that I really like to do are comparisons, especially when it comes to Masters of the Universe Classics. Classics, of course, was always my favorite toy line, so this is definitely an opportunity for me to see how it compares. And of course, every now and then you'll get figures that maybe, you know, in the Origins style, they've been able to trump some of the things that they messed up on in Classics. But most of the time, the Classics versions are just, you know, far superior because it's just a different medium and they were made for a direct-to-collector market. And this is definitely one of those cases. You know, it's very hard to put up Snakeface here in this classic form meant to look like the old figures, and to put him against something like this and to try to draw this reasonable comparison about how they look together. I think there's a couple of things that stand out. I think the first thing is that Snakeface up here, the spray is more prominent and kind of works its way up his neck and a little bit on his face with the green. Over here, the spray is more relegated to the arms and a little more in line with what we would see, you know, in the classic version. Of course, the paint detail is so much more immaculate in the old Horseman version. And I especially like that he does have those snakes painted down there on his forearms, which, as you can see, does make quite a bit of visual pop. It makes a little bit of a difference. I like that metallic paint that they used over here, and without it, it's just a little more flat. The other thing is they gave him more prominent, like, monster claw feet, and it's not just like webbed toes on his boots, and changed the boot shape just a little bit. Overall, I do think that it's an interesting comparison. Of course, there's just a lot more paint over here, and the sculpted detail is just immaculate. The action feature it works the same way with the switchable heads, of course, but these just unplug on the front of the chest, and then you can plug up snakes into them. So it's kind of like what I was talking about earlier. They were also nearly the same price, but you have to consider that the Classics line is getting long in the tooth, over 10 years old. And so those prices just don't translate. And back then, what we paid for one of these Classics figures, I'm sure would be tantamount to more like paying $35 for a figure now or so. So it was definitely a premium price at that time, and viewed in today's context, that's what it would be. This is a general release. Costs right around $22 or so for a deluxe, $21. Just depends on where you find it. I think that that's a reasonable thing. I definitely didn't feel like that he should have came with more stuff. I'm always glad to see the alternate heads. Those are probably my favorite deluxe accessories. But anyway, though, that's just a little comparison. This is awfully hard to beat, and it still retains the crown. Very nice. And of course, here is Snakeface alongside of the rest of the Snake Men that I've acquired so far. Like I've said previously, just patiently waiting on that squeeze to get out here, and just really anxiously looking forward to what's next for the Snake Men. Of course, we have that Army Builder pack coming out with the Snake Armor He-Man repaint. Hoping we see things like Fangor pretty soon, things like Lady Slither. And I would even like to see a recreation of some of those Snake Men Army Builders from Classics in that 2-pack that I think they were like orange or something. Either way, I'm game for whatever they release as long as they keep up this standard of quality. I think this is a really fun deluxe figure. The action feature isn't as exciting as some of the other deluxes that we've gotten, and that's okay. Of course, this action feature can mostly just be simulated with a changeable head, and I find that more fun anyway. It allows them to retain the articulation in the neck, and I think that it would be a really big bummer if the head just stayed stationary just so that you could get, one action feature. I think they made the right call here. Of course, when you consider that they retained a lot of the fun of the action feature with the Dragon Blaster Skeletor, they did so without inhibiting anything. And I think that that's always a good call to make, is to look and say, okay, well, can we have this without it kind of ruining another aspect of the figure? Yeah, I definitely had fun with this guy. It's also great to see him with all the other Snake Men. So I do think that's awesome. I think that maybe he might have needed like one more little thing. I'm not sure what it would have been to have justified the whole deluxe treatment. I do think he comes with a decent amount of stuff, particularly when you consider the alternate head right here. But I still think that it's enough to where it classifies as deluxe. And perhaps if he didn't have the flip down panels on his chest, I would feel a little differently, but I think it does what it needs to do. It's also worth pointing out that there's so much of this figure that's original tooling that we've not seen used in the line so far. So I think that that always, of course, adds to the cost of something like this. Of course, let me know down in the comments what you think about this figure. Also, be sure to subscribe to the channel if you haven't yet. Of course, I do new Masters videos all the time, and I always really enjoy reading your comments as well, so I would love to hear what you have to say about Snakeface. And here's an interesting question. What is your favorite Snake Man? I would love to hear down below. For me, it's Tongue Lasher, and probably always has been, just for connections I have with him from my childhood, like I talked about in that review. But let me know yours down below. Of course, God bless you and yours, and I'll see you on Fanboys Forever. Fanboy out.